In this live visually building series, we're going to build a VSL upsell similar to the one shown below. We'll have a video at the top of the page which will autoplay when the page loads, and then towards the end of the video we're going to actually expose the full transcript, and then down at the bottom we're going to have a call to action where the customer can choose to add the upsell or decline. So let's go ahead and get started. Here I am in the back of my storefront on the upsells page, and we're going to start by clicking the plus icon and creating a new offer. The first thing I'm going to do is give it a title, and then we'll enable it, and we'll go ahead and find a product. It doesn't really matter for this demo. I'm just going to pick any product that's in my storefront. We need to pick a starting template. I'm going to go ahead and start with the blank slate option. It has less for me to clear out to achieve the look. Once I pick that, then I can click Edit Offer Content, and that will open up a new tab in my browser, and it will be ready to edit. So to start with, I'm going to go ahead and open up a second tab, which is the preview. It'll go ahead and open in another window. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose desktop so that we can see exactly what this is looking like. And we're going to be flipping back and forth as we edit this. So to start with, the first requirement is we want to get rid of the header, the subscription box, and the footer when we're in the upsell sequence. That's a very common thing for people to want to do. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our hierarchy. And you can do that by clicking on the hierarchy or hovering over an element and clicking on the hierarchy tab. So at the top we have this shared header, and this header is shared across the entire storefront theme. So we don't want to come in here and just delete things. It would actually delete from a number of different pages. Likewise, we have the mailing list in the footer. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the first section, subheader, and we're going to wrap that with an element called hide if. It basically says, hey, if this condition is true, I want to hide this element. So there's a lot of different conditions we can pick from. I'm going to go ahead and pick when we're in an upsell. You can go ahead and save that out. So here we have the hide if statement, and we have one section inside of it. I'm going to just click and drag and bring these other sections underneath the hide if element. So I know that when I'm on an upsell, I'm no longer going to see any of these sections. And we can see that when we refresh the upsell, that's changed. Okay, we're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to wrap with a hide if statement, choosing upsell. And then for the footer, do the exact same. Now, if this is your style for your upsells, you only need to do this one time, because the next upsell you create, it uses the same base template, and so it's going to have these hide if statements in those various sections. So we can see now that our page is down to just the upsell content itself. So we are ready to get started. I'm going to go ahead and open up the hierarchy, and we're going to start working in this first row here. And so let's look at what we're going to do. First, we're going to start and we're going to create this. This is called a progress chevron. It gives the customer some indication that, hey, this is not an infinite process. You're working your way towards the confirmation. And then we're going to create a piece of content that causes them to pause and hopefully watch the video, and then we'll move on. So let's get started with the progress chevron, and we can go ahead and add this in the first column. So we're going to click add a child, and there's our progress chevron element. The way the progress chevron element works, you put the text for the steps in here. So I've already got that typed out. And then you enter the text for where you're actively at. and that'll change colors. And then we can simply customize the colors, and I've already gathered these RGB values from the other site. So I'm just going to click on my colors and paste these values in. And last but not least, there we go. And then we'll go ahead and bump up the font, say 20 pixels, and we can go ahead and make that bold. Now don't worry, the progress chevron is responsive, so it will shrink down nicely. We can see there it is on our preview screen. Tablet, it'll go double. Oh, actually, we got a little bit of problem there on our mobile with our text. So let's see how we can address that. So let's say that we want the font to be 20 pixels on desktop, but then let's see if we can shrink that down on mobile. And what we'll do is we'll make it fluid, which means it's going to slide between that based upon the browser screen size. Okay, close. We're definitely close. Maybe take that down just a hair more. Yeah. And if you're going to have a real small piece of text, you may want to choose to use a font like Cabin is a really good one if the text gets small. So you can choose a different font, and it'll be more readable. Okay, so moving on from the progress chevron, let's go back into our hierarchy. So here we have the progress chevron right here. So we're going to add below that, and we're going to add a row, and the row is going to have 2 columns on the left. And so if we look at our design, we're trying to get a stop sign image here and then most of the text, and we want to keep this look even when we're on mobile. Actually, now we'll put the stop sign above and then the text. So what we'll do is we'll just drag this width over, something like that. And when you're dealing with rows and columns, they have default margin and padding on it, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing. So what I like to do is just add the text and stuff, and then if it's a problem, we'll zero out the margin and padding. So in our first column, let's go ahead and add a child for the image, and we're going to go ahead and let me find my image here. Just going to drag my stop sign image over and drop it in. We'll see how big it is. We may, well, looks pretty good. Okay, so now we want to put some content over here. Let's look at our comp again, and we'll see that we have basically some red text and some black text. So I'm going to accomplish that with 2 text blocks. So we'll come in here and click Add Element, and we'll choose a text block, and then we'll do another one right below it. So here's our 2 text blocks, and we'll go ahead and edit the text for the first one. And if you already have some basic text that's got some markup, in this case I have something that has the underline, you can switch into source code mode and just paste that in. As you can see, I got that little UL and the BR and all that. And then on the second one, we'll just use straight text. So there we have our text in there. Now we just need to adjust the colors, the fonts, and everything. So for our text color, let's go ahead and set red. You can always type in the name of colors. The editor's pretty smart. It'll figure out most colors. And so let's go ahead and set the font size, and we'll go ahead and make it bold. Keep getting their attention. Okay, second text block, we're just going to go ahead and, even though it's closed, we're going to set it to just pure dark black. And likewise, let's take that font size to 20 and make it bold. Okay, let's see how we're doing. This is what mobile is going to look like. Tablet, desktop. See, on tablet, that margin and padding is kind of smushing things. So let's do this. Let's go in here to this row, and we're going to use the zero margin and padding tool, and we'll just say all. That'll give us all our margin and padding. And then I'm going to go into the image itself, and I'm going to set its alignment to be centered. Okay, that's better on tablet, desktop, better. There we go. That looks quite a bit better. Probably a good idea to put a little bit of margin on the top of this particular row. So let's just go ahead and put 20 pixels of margin, get it off that chevron, and we'll put 20 below. Okay, looking pretty good. Always a good idea to save. Let's take a look at our comp. Next up is our video. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do add below. Choose our video element. All right, and I just have a YouTube link to some VSL looking video, so I'm just going to paste that in. Now you can use videos off of YouTube, Vimeo, Wistia, or an MP4 file. So a lot of people will use Wistia just because it has a good analytics engine to let you know, okay, people are really getting bored and dropping off here, type of thing. It'll let you know where you might need to adjust your video. In this case, we're going to go ahead and autoplay on page load. And then you may want to do hide controls and loop, set that to yes. Now, a lot of times when you're doing these type of VSL upsells, one of the hard part is hiding content until you get to a certain part. So nice thing about the video element is you can say trigger at a certain number of seconds. And so if you use a negative value here, it means from the end. So this video is 12 minutes and 20 seconds long. So I could just say, hey, at 20 seconds until the end, I want to go ahead and show certain elements. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I want to go ahead and show these two rows here and here. And all the plumbing is already taken care of for you. So at that point, the video is pretty much, that part's done. Now those elements those two rows we said, hey, video, go ahead and show those at the end. We need to get them hidden from the start. So in the hierarchy, I'm going to hover over the first row and I'm just going to say hide. And now you can see it says hidden. And I'm going to do the same thing for this row. There we go. All right, we can see that in our preview, we're only seeing the video. The rest of it's hidden. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our comp. The next is the big block of text. And I know that a lot of you are used to, doing the HTML by hand, etc. For this kind of text. And that's fine. You may already even have this text, but what we see is a lot of people have poorly matched up tags and stuff. But don't fear, we have a solution for this. So you can have your handwritten HTML, but not blow up the visual builder. And so what we do is we're going to use an embed element. And so below the divider, we're going to add the embed element. And it's similar to the HTML element, but it technically puts the content in a responsive iframe, and so it prevents the content from having any negative side effects on the page itself. And you're going to see this used a little bit more with trust logos and stuff here in a little bit. So on the embed element, we're going to do edit HTML, and we can paste in whatever content we want. So I'm going to go ahead and get that content. Okay, so you can see big, huge block of content. We got paragraph tags and H1 tags and everything. Um, this is just from the other site for the purposes of this demo. But let's go ahead and save it and see what happens. So you can see here, there's the big block of content. Um, you can do styling inside that embed. If you got image URLs, make sure they're properly relative to the page, etc. But that's a good way to get a big, huge existing block of content into the page. Over time, you might want to start writing that using individual elements within the visual builder, but for the purposes of this demo, we'll go that route. Okay, so now we're down to the call to actions, where we want to go from the green yes button and the red no button to this style or something close to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two columns. So we got two columns here. One contains the yes and one contains the no. And right now, on tablet and up, they're basically half width, or 6 columns. I'm going to remove that so they're always full width. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and start working on the first button. Go ahead and say upgrade my order. And we're going to change these color schemes. I'm going to override that default green with that orange. And when they hover, we're going to go to a darker orange. We definitely need a border. They had a little yellow border there of 6 pixels, so we'll start bringing in that 6 pixel border. There we go, and we can give that. Let's see, got that. All right. Fonts. Let's go ahead and bump that up. The other comp uses a 38 pixel font. I think that's a little aggressive for mobile, so I'm going to start at 20, end at 38, and make this font fluid. Let's go ahead and flip over. So right now in our preview mode, it's not going to auto start playing any of the videos, because that'd be real annoying if you had 3 previews all playing the same video. So in order to see my content for now, I'm going to go ahead and come back in here and set it to show. And then at the end, so there we go. We're starting to see our buttons come into play. Okay, we have slightly too big a font and small, so let's go ahead and just adjust that font size. Let's take it down to say 16 pixels. There we go. And one other thing we can do is we can reduce the side padding a little bit. That's something we can control. Now the button is full width right now, so we can actually say, okay, it's small, full width, and then tablet and up, we can set it to fluid, and that'll cause it to shrink down to its minimal size. Okay. And so you can also do other things if you want to mess with your buttons. You can set them to animate and pulse and do fancy things like that. Okay, the next thing they had is this little piece of disclaimer text. So let's go ahead and we'll add that below our button. So here's our yes button. Add below, text block. Paste that text in. Oops, let's see. Drag that around. And probably want to bump that up on the font size. And we'll put a little margin below it. Okay. Now this one's a little more tricky. We got the no button and we want to turn it into what looks like a clickable link. So eventually we may actually have a style for this, but for now there's a way to accomplish this. So let's go ahead and edit the button, and inside this button I'm actually going to use a scope style, and all a scope style is a piece of CSS that's very localized to an element. And so I've gone ahead and created one, and it basically says set the background color to transparent, the text color to blue, give it the underline decoration, and knock out the border. So it takes out a lot of that. So scope style will get us there on the color. I'm going to go ahead and set it to be a fluid button. Can't really see the change, but now it's small, and we're going to display inline block. And then if we get rid of the default padding, we now have a very, very small button that looks just like a piece of text. Let's see what font size they're using. 22 point. So let's do the same. I'm going to go ahead and clear out these hover colors as well, so we don't get a red hover. .22 might be aggressive on mobile, so we'll see what we got in our preview here. Yeah, we're going to leave it at that 16 point. So we got our no thanks there, and then as we get larger, let's turn on fluid fonts. There we go. We start to get larger at tablet, and then all the way up we'll get the big text. Awesome. So now we need to put some content beside it, the rest of the sentence. So we got the button. So let's add below, and let's choose a text. Text is an inline element by default, and text block is a block element. If you're a web developer, that makes a little more sense. So we have our text block there. Let's go ahead and put a little margin just to bring it off the other one. Let's get the fonts set to be the same, 16 to 22 and fluid. That way you can see it's going to read like a sentence. And then we'll just take this piece of text here. Click on the pencil, it'll go into edit mode, and I just replace. So we can see in our preview, this is what we got. Mobile looks pretty decent, and tablet. Okay, now let's talk about trust logos. And if you are dealing with trust logos, or if you've ever dealt with them before, you know they don't have the most elegant script to implement. So if we inspect some of these various elements, um, you'll see things from image tags with A links. Here's Norton, and it'll have, you know, it'll have a table, it'll have script tags, it'll have all manner of stuff. So what I want to do is show you how to lay that out, and then you can paste in whatever script tags you have. Um, so let's go ahead, and this is going to be at the bottom because this is actually going to be visible um, the entire time. So now that we're done with the buttons, I'm going to go ahead and hide those again. And then below here, I'm going to add a row. Now, we have 5 trust logos in the comp, and rows are 12 columns wide. So obviously, you can't evenly divide to get a column count there. But what we can do is a little trick by centering it up. So if I choose 5 columns, it's going to be 2, 2, 2, 3, and 3. That's the default. It's going to take up the entire 12. Let's see here. So here's my column. Okay, so we have our row there. And the first thing we need to do is bring these columns down to being just 2 wide. So column 4 and 5, I'm going to click Edit, and I'm going to set them to be 2 wide. Same thing with column 5. Okay. So right now these 5 columns are only taking, they're only taking up a width of 10. And so what we can do on the first column, right, we can come in here and offset, and we can push it over 1. So we've pushed everything over 1 on tablet and up. So at this point, we got 1 column on the left and 1 column on the right, basically centering things up. Now, when you have this many columns, that default margin and padding gets a little messy. So we're going to zero that all out. You can see now those columns are taking up the full width. Let's go ahead and look at what we have here. So we got some interesting content. Alright, so inside of each of these columns, what we would do is add an embed element. Remember, the embed ends up being in a responsive iframe, and it will protect you from whatever script. Okay, so logo 1 script here. Okay, and then you would do that, you'd embed, 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 and you'd have all your logos. Now, we also probably would like to put some margin on this so it's not riding right up against the other content. Let's take a look at our preview. Okay. Actually, just for giggles, let's go ahead and I'm just gonna take this element and we'll duplicate it just so we can see our placeholders. So copy, add child, there it is on my clipboard. We'll paste, add child, paste, add child, paste, and then add child, paste. Okay, just go ahead and edit these so we can see all of our placeholders. And so by isolating all these trust logos, if down the road one of these vendors, anything goes wrong with their script, it's not going to break your checkout. That's the big deal. That isolated embed is not going to break your checkout. Alright, so we have our placeholders there. They could be images, once again, links, scripts, whatever. Let's take a look. So here we have them on tablet. There's our desktop. And then on mobile, they're 12 wide and stacking. So put them in there. Alright, let's take a look at what else we got. So we have this gray look on the sides and white on the container. So let's see if we can match that as well. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to the container, which is our upsell container, and we'll set a background color there. I'm just going to, I don't know what their exact value, I'm just type in light gray. It'll pick something. So now the background of the container is light gray. Let's go ahead and go back into our hierarchy, and then for our section we'll set a background color of white. So now we've gotten the section back to white. We have the gray border, and then if I inspect their page here, I bet they're using like a box shadow. Give me 1 second, I'll find that style. Okay, so found the box shadow, and what we'll do is we'll just go back into our hierarchy. Let's go up to the section, and I'm just going to use a scope style. So when you're directly on the element, just brackets, box shadow, and then there we have the particular CSS entry. So you can do anything with CSS with scope styles that's not in the editor. And now we have the scope style impacting that. Alright, so let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and test our preview here. Okay, since we're in preview mode, you need to actually tell the video to start. So I'm going to go ahead and start the video, and then I'm going to go ahead and jump over here to 11 minutes and 48 seconds, and then you can see here, as soon as we hit 20 seconds to the end, the content that we wanted to show appeared, and there's our call to action buttons. So at this point we have created a complete VSL to mimic this particular site. So the next thing I'm going to demonstrate is actually importing this from the sample that we'll end up posting on our doc site. So you've downloaded the CJSON file from the doc site, and now you're ready to create your own VSL upsell using what we did in this tutorial. So here we are on our storefront again. We're going to go ahead and click add an offer, and we'll call this VSL import demo. Once again, I'm going to pick an item, and I'm going to click blank slate and open up the editor. As we described earlier, all those sections that we did hide if, those are all shared across the entire storefront, so those don't have to do any of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and inside the editor, we're going to do a add below on that section, and there's this upload CJSON file, and so I'm going to go ahead and drag a file over there for upload. Okay, it's uploaded and the browser's already parsed it. We see it's the section, and I'll click on that, and it will go ahead and load the entire section. Not sure why the error modal popped up during render, but you can see we just imported almost all the work that we did in the tutorial. The only thing we need to go do is delete the stock section. Go away, error modal. And we'll go set that container background color, since it's a different container for this upsell. And we'll just set that to light gray. I do not know why the error modal keeps popping up, but that's live visually building for you. Save out our second one, and when we load it in preview, it should just look exactly like we expected. Okay. So once you've brought this stock upsell into your storefront, if this is your model of doing upsells, then you can take an existing upsell that you've created and you can simply duplicate it. So here's my duplicate. And you can see I already have, I would change out the item ID, I would open up the content, swap out the video, swap out the embed code, maybe change this disclaimer here, and I've duplicated that upsell probably in 5 minutes and have it launched and ready to go. So very powerful once you get going. And so that's going to conclude it for this live visually building video, and we'll go ahead and post this up on our YouTube channel and on our docs.ultracart.com site under the storefront educational, and then you can find the CJSON file there, and it will be modified to not contain the direct copy, but just placeholders.